Good morning. Welcome back. President Trump and Jared Kushner unveiling their immigration overhaul in a meeting with a dozen GOP senators.
All right. No hard specific details have been laid out at this point, but the plan aims to modernize the ports of legal entry into this country and also end the chain migration system.
Executive Director of the Center for Immigration Studies, Mark Krikorian, joins us live to explain what's needed and how it could be impacted by the Ninth Circuit ruling. Thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it. As it stands right now, I think many people highly doubt the Democrats will be on board. What do you think it would take in order to get support for this?
Oh, I don't think there's any way the Democrats in the House would support anything the president put forward on immigration. I mean, literally, even if the White House offered to amnesty every illegal alien in the country and give them a lifetime supply of lollipops, the Democrats would not agree to the kinds of changes that are in this legislation. So I think this is more an attempt to set out an agenda that the White House supports rather than actual legislation that's intended to go anywhere.
Yeah, well, let's break this thing down. And first off, let's take a look at the senators that were in this meeting, the Republicans that were there. You can see the names right there. Basically, what this wants to do is take the system away from allowing people to bring in their family of the lottery system that we've had and bringing in people based on what they can do in this country. A merit-based system is what the president wants. And I think he's hoping to get the attention of people in this country that are working, because the point is that when you bring in a lot of low-wage, low-skilled workers, it drags the price of labor down, 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 and nobody makes as much money.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Also, it's harder for some people to get hired if they're marginal to the labor market. People like ex-cons, recovering addicts, people like that employers don't want to hire. When the labor market is tight, they have no choice but to hire them. But that is what the White House is trying to do, is limit family immigration to husbands, wives, and little kids, but then move most of those immigration numbers to skills-based, where they take into account your college degrees and what have you. The place I think that this bill falls short is that it doesn't reduce the level of immigration. It just leaves it at the more than 1 million a year that we have now. And it's imperative, it seems to me, that there be some moderation, some at least modest reductions in the level of immigration. The president actually called for that during the campaign, but says now, because the unemployment rate is so low, he's changed his mind. The thing is that when the unemployment rate is low is precisely when you do not want to import immigrants, because keeping the labor market tight means employers are forced to look to hiring people they ordinarily don't want to hire. Like I said, ex-cons, recovering addicts, the disabled, single moms who need flexible schedules, teenagers maybe who aren't very good workers. All of those people are hurt when immigration is high.
Let's take a look at this number here. Family unit apprehensions at the southwest border in fiscal year of 2019. Look at that number, 189,584. You have a story that federal prosecutors told of a Tucson grand jury that a Guatemalan man allegedly paid a family the equivalent of about $130 to rent their 8-year-old son. We're seeing children used essentially as pawns more often than we should be talking about, quite honestly. What do you make of that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, first of all, most people bringing kids with them across the border are bringing their own kids. But there is increasingly this phenomenon of renting kids, sometimes even recycling kids. In other words, they get into the country, they're sent back to Central America and brought with a different adult. And the reason this happens is because of the loopholes in our law. We have a requirement that that a child, a minor, cannot be held in immigration detention more than 20 days. Yeah. And we don't split families because of all the political outrage that caused last year. So what that means is, if you bring a kid with you, you are guaranteed to be released into the U.S. in no more than 3 weeks. That is a powerful incentive to bring kids, your kids, somebody else's kids, whatever. And until that loophole is plugged, we're going to see more and more of this happening.
It's putting the kids in harm's way.
Renting and recycling kids. I mean, just think about that for a second. Mark, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now on to the border of insanity. That is the focus of tonight's angle. The reaction to last night's show from Del Rio border sector was so overwhelming, we just couldn't let it go. Now, we brought you video you had not seen before. along the Rio Grande River, the natural barrier between Mexico and the United States in this part of Texas. Well, we saw illegal immigrants jumping into the river from the Mexico side with full knowledge that nearby Border Patrol would jump in and rescue them.
They're getting ready to cross.
So what will you do here?
The father and a child.
Flotation device.
No.
So he's in the water without the baby's got the device on.
Right.
I'll get over here. This is terrifying. I mean, you have a man separated. Now you have a man separated from his baby here. The baby's crying on the other boat, and Border Patrol is left to have to fish him out of the river.
We don't want to become a ferry service.
Right.
We know that it's a daily struggle that these guys have, but you know you can't leave an infant in the water
right.
struggling. You can't leave small children living in the water.
It was terrifying, but a ferry service is exactly what the Border Patrol has become. Now, the illegals may be indigent, and they only come with what they can fit in a little grocery bag, but they're extremely well informed of our loopholes and our absurd enforcement restrictions. And now they're taking advantage of all of those loopholes with the help of the cartels who, get this, are paid handsomely by the illegals to help transport them across Mexico and right into the hands of our Border Patrol. Now, here you see people cheering on the shoreline after this man is pulled onto the boat.
Who is that? ¿Quién es?
¿De quién es? ¿De quién es eso?
¿Quién es? Son amigos. Your friend.
Sus amigos.
Sí, amigos.
Now, I spoke with some of these migrants, and they come, as I said, with little to nothing, and along with their children, who are innocent pawns in all of this. And the sadness and the fear in their eyes, I will not forget. But everyone I spoke to, everyone, already has a place in the United States to go.
La dirección de la amiga.
En el teléfono lo traía todo, pero el teléfono me cayó, pero en mi Messenger, por Facebook tengo todo. Si me permiten.
But not just to Maryland.
¿Dónde ellos?
Miami.
We have.
¿Tienes amigos en los Estados Unidos?
Tengo una amiga cerca de Washington.
Oh, Washington, D.C. Oh, okay.
Well, I told that particular migrant that was I was from. We had a little moment of levity. But politicians have been downplaying this for political reasons. We all know that. They're lying to you. This is a national problem. It's not just a border state problem. One of the more illuminating moments from yesterday was in the Border Patrol Processing Center. Now, they didn't let us bring cameras into the area where they're actually processing the illegal immigrants for privacy and other concerns, but they're taken to this processing center after they're picked up in the Rio Grande. Now, inside, they're separated into categories: family units, single adult males, and unaccompanied minors. Now, the families that I spoke with told me that they had paid the cartels up to $12,000 for passage. But guess what? The money, in most cases, came from relatives or friends already in the U.S. And it gets better. Most of them are illegals, too. You heard that right. Our system is so screwed up that it permits illegals living here now to finance the trips of other illegals who want to come join them. Oh, and it gets worse.
We have folks who will come in and literally within 45 minutes, they're in a delivery room, and that was just a week ago.
Wait a second, they're delivering children?
They're delivering children. We will apprehend them. They'll be 8.5, 9 months pregnant, and they'll be in labor when we make that arrest. By the time we get to the emergency room, they're delivering within 30 to 45 minutes.
And guess who picks up the costs at the hospital? Well, we all do. Taxpayers here in the United States are subsidizing the enormous cost of health care for illegal immigrants, their children, and their births once here. Now, I found out today that in 2018 alone, Memorial Hermann Health System here in Texas, the largest health care provider in the Lone Star State, reported almost $500 million in losses due to unpaid medical bills. They basically had to write it all off. Well, of course, since, you know, they don't get paid and they're not authorized, by the way, to ask patients about their immigration status, ultimately the cost is eventually passed on to, well, you guessed it, Americans. So I ask you, how is any of this acceptable? We have U.S. vets who still can't get the timely treatment they need, yet illegal immigrants are allowed to use emergency rooms as their primary care centers free of charge. It's obscene and it's unfair. But you still don't think it's an emergency, right? Well, tonight we learned from our sources in the Rio Grande Valley sector that they are being completely overrun by unprecedented numbers of illegal aliens and asylum seekers. Over the past week, and this stunned me, 10,000 illegal aliens were apprehended by Border Patrol. Those are just the ones apprehended. And that made it one of the highest weekly totals ever seen in the history of the sector. New numbers for the month of April are coming out tomorrow. And sources are telling us that they could be the highest on record. My friends, this is a complete and total travesty. We spent trillions of dollars in Iraq and Afghanistan defending other people's borders, and we've allowed our own borders to just become meaningless. Any politician who says this isn't a crisis or refuses to be part of a real solution should retire or be retired. And that's the angle.